What's going on, guys? Kigerr here, and in today's video, I'm joined by Misery Hates Company to go over Magic in all game modes. We're going to be going over his take on how Magic can perform in all the game modes and why she is not the worst. Let's get into it. What's going on, guys? Kigerr here, and today I'm joined by Misery Hates Company. What's going on, man?
Hey man, thank you so much for having me on the channel.
Of course, of course. So I brought you on because we did a collab over on your channel. The link's down below if you guys want to check it out on Widow, the original Widow. Um, but Misery here has spent a lot of time on Magic, so I wanted to get his opinion on some things.
Absolutely, entirely too much time. No, but she's a very unique character, and like Kigerr said, the video that we did together on Black Widow was really enlightful for me. So I look forward to discussing this with you guys on his channel.
Of course. You want to walk me through some abilities?
Absolutely. So if you go over to the change skill, it's just easier for me to look at it that way. Um, did it freeze? There you are. Okay. So the very first skill I look at is the farthest to the left.
Mm-hmm.
This one is kind of one of your bread and butter ones. So it's called Soul Slash, Limbo Slash. I personally put it at the 4 slot, and I use my slots as a true kind of like rotation. So that way, no matter where I am, what am I playing on, either it's my laptop, my computer, or my phone, if it's just very fluid because the game plays dramatically different from PvP, at least in my mind, when you play on different devices. But so that would be our 4 slot. But to go in order, I would actually do the second from the left, which is our Abyssal Advent. So that is your quick little teleport in. It applies a dot or damage over time for 5 seconds, and it does 13.3% of your attack. It's a great little intro into the fight, a quick little burst of, it's not quite an iframe, but it does a quick little burst into the fight, which is awesome. From there, I actually do the third from the left, and this is, of course, my PvE build. I guess I should have led with that. And this is Summon Limbo Hatchling. So that would go with the 2 slot. And so the whole point of this, and this is actually like a bit of a hack in itself, if you will. So when this little baby dragon comes out, it does a little aerial effect where it breathes fire on the target. You can see it does like a bit of a cross technique. That doesn't count toward its time out on the battlefield. So with the appropriate cooldown reduction, you can actually have this skill out the whole time. Basically on cooldown, which is fantastic. So it only sets us out for 16 seconds, but it actually will be out the whole time. And the reason we're using this so early in our rotation, if you will, is that it's going to apply a burn, which is going to increase the damage received by the target receives by 20% for 6 seconds. And again, with the appropriate amount of cooldown, you're going to have this on basically on cooldown the whole time, which is huge. The next skill is going to be the 4th from the left, and that's going to be the Soul Strike. Now, this is the one where, if you've seen the video on my channel, where we hit 2.5 million damage on the last part of this skill. This is where it's just truly awesome. And when we get into the specs, the reason this one is first is that it's going to just stack the burn as well as one of the specializations to do just a ton of damage. But then Kigerr had to go and break my heart with his Black Widow comment, how you guys can crit over 6 million. So it just shattered my hopes and dreams. So thanks for that.
I'm sure you'll get some comments and screenshots.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be great. I can't wait. So then we did touch on the first skill being in that 4th slot. Again, just touching base, since they're going in a bit of a rotation now. So it's Limbo Slash. Last but not least, I personally use the second from the right, which is Stepping Strike. So again, that is a bit of a gap close is how I use it in PvE. Again, this is PvE, so you're probably just going to auto it anyway and let it go. And this seems to work out pretty well while maximizing your damage. I did test this. If you guys have watched Half Send, shout out to him as well. He was actually the one that kind of introduced me to this thought process. But if you test with Ultron in the raid at a lower difficulty, you can actually kind of get a good timing down for what the best damage is for PvE, because you don't necessarily have to dodge out of anything and still be able to do a lot of damage.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the best rotation, if you will, for full autoing. When it comes to invasions, I still use it, but obviously for this last invasion, it was all focused around guard break, so I did have to adjust a little bit, but for general PvE, this will get you through it.
Sounds good.
So if we talk about dimension duels and just group PvP in general, I have a very similar build to both. I'm kind of playing with it as well. But the very first skill that I would use in sort of like I say sort of like a rotation because PvP is obviously not, you
Of
shouldn't be
course.
autoing PvP
Mm-hmm.
unless you just are in for a bad time. So the third skill from the right, and then we're going to actually use the second one, which is Summon Limbo Hound. So in Dimension Duel in particular, this is huge because you do summon two of the little puppy dogs, if you will, the highest guard break, but they also explode at the very end, which is not really something that's talked about all that often. But I can very easily use my initial dash, which is the 2, which I guess I'll touch on first. So the second slot would be the Abyssal Advent. Second, yep, right there. So that would actually be my 2 slot. I would actually intro with that and then do the dogs, but it kind of depends on the character. So if, for example, if I know it's an Iron Man or a Spider Man, and I know I can get to the middle or at least closer to them, I will pop dogs first and then use this. But it just truly depends on whatever that first skill is going to be for the hero you're fighting against. Doctor Strange's, not to put you on blast, you guys got a buff and it's great, but I'm going to pop dogs first on you guys all day because I can easily teleport out and back in and dodge
I do want to call
some of your
attention to
attacks.
the last line of the skill text. Explode when dying or after a set number of attacks, dealing damage and additional guard damage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is so this in tandem with Hulk, who is my companion of choice, kind of getting out of out of line here, but these two together, it proves to be a big problem for a lot of people in Dimension Duels. It's something you just cannot ignore, especially if he gets his taunt off. So yeah, once they explode, usually if timed correctly, you're still taunted on Hulk, so that you just get the additional guard damage, and then you're broken.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I've seen on, depending on the build and who you're fighting against, but that's typically how it plays out. So we got dogs first, then we got the Abyssal Advent. My third one is actually going to be the first skill, Soul Slash Quick Stab, which looks like you already have it. Yep, already on. The whole idea behind this is so you summon dogs, do your little teleport, and then you're going to Quick Stab basically right behind the person. I do then use my Stepping Strike, so second from the right. I use that as my 4th slot, usually because after I get on top of someone in any type of PvP setting, they're going to dash away. It's very obvious that damage is incoming and they need to not be there.
Mm-hmm.
So I then use Stepping Strike. I usually also sneak in a couple autos, and I feel like that's what a lot of Magics kind of sleep on. You don't want to play Magik like she's a true like magician, where you can only use your skills. Your autos do a ton of damage, and there's a time and a place to do that. So I usually do Stepping Strike into at least 1 or 2 autos. By that time, they've usually dodged away again, so that burns their second dodge. And then you actually have the right skill, the same one that I use, which is the Dark Encounter Hunter in the Dark, which just pulls them back in, at least ideally. I very rarely actually have that pull happen, but you do at least get the cannot dodge skill for 3 seconds. And then, of course, the disabling the dodge. But then the flat 486% damage is also why you're using it. This is I basically use as a finisher unless I'm playing against Spider-Man. So if they're running away, usually by this case I've done enough damage where, and we'll get into the specs in here in a little bit, where I'm going to be doing a little bit more damage. So this is typically a finisher, or if I just need to start off as an opener on Spider-Man, I do use this one as well.
Something to call attention to is the Master of the Abyss, Abyssal Advent. You have the first or second slot in both of these game modes. Something to call attention to is that it is Dark Magic, which, how your ultimate works, allows you to charge your ultimate gauge.
Absolutely. Yep, that is very important. And same with Hunter in the Dark. That's also
Mm-hmm.
going to be a dark magic class, so you get a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more there too. So when it comes to group PvP, my skill board looks very similar. In fact, my other slot is completely dedicated to invasion, so I won't change it too much. The only thing I would change is probably the dogs. I would change that to Arcane Sword, Demon Slayer, 4th from the left. Yep, you're already on it. And then I would just probably put that, kind of rotate everything down 1 and put that in the 4th slot. You can
Gotcha.
imagine it like that. And that way you still have the Hunter in the Dark as an option. I just kind of keep it off because it's very situational, or a finisher. But that way you have kind of a true rotation that way.
Sounds good. I want to lead directly into the specializations.
Absolutely. So Magic, we mentioned this in our video when we were just talking about Black Widow, and I mentioned Storm as a favorite of mine when it comes to her specialization and how it interacts together. I wish Magic was like that, but that's a drama story for a whole nother time. But there are some that you don't want to ignore, and there are also some alternative depending on which way you want to build Magic. But the way I have her built is top left, the red one. I use, it's called Soul Sword Enhance. So increase attack by 20% for 6 seconds when using a Soul Sword. So for a PvE aspect, we mentioned that we have the little hatchling that we summon. Your first skill that you're going to use in terms of true damage is going to be that Soul Slash, which is the biggest one. By that time, you're activating this. And by the time that third one hits, you got the burn and now the 20% additional damage on it. So you can see it stack up pretty well. The next one I use is far left, the purple one. Limbo Control. Just a nice flat decrease to cooldown. At level 10, it's 7.5%. I have found somehow, by the graces of the RNG gods, that I've gotten more cooldown on my build. So this, in addition to that, and that's really all I need.
This one confuses me a little bit, and why I say that is
Yeah.
most of specializations are direct 1-to-1 scale up.
Yeah.
This one maxes at 7.5%
Yep.
instead of 10.2.
Yeah, it definitely feels bad. I would have liked that extra 2.5%.
What else we got?
All right, so the next one, where am I? So bottom right orange. For like if
Yep,
you're
this
a
is the big
Magic.
one.
Yeah, that's the one where you see magics at over 2 million. Crazy magics. So convert at level 10, 3% of your overall HP into attack, which is super nice. Basically, anytime you pick up HP, instead of it just being like a wash of a stat, you get additional attack out of it. Your builder tanky, and you get some pretty solid attack.
Well,
Also,
building
yeah,
off of that, your ultimate works in such a way it heals a percentage of your HP, so you want
hmm
more HP. It also gives you mitigation during your ultimate, so more HP equals more healing equals more mitigation equals damage.
absolutely. And that was especially helpful in this last invasion with Magneto. I was able to, when all of my counterparts or partners would die, because I actually pugged all of it. I never actually went into with a pre-built team. Um, Sad face dies alone. But when the ultimate went off, it would heal me for over half of my health. So I was actually able to sustain my health with certain
Very
specs that
nice.
we'll get to in here in a second. So it was really easy. I very rarely failed on level 5, which was nice.
Well, there you go.
Going off of that, if you go straight up to the red one there, Mystic Magic, so increase ultimate skill gauge recovery speed by at max level, it's going to be 52.5% for 5 seconds when using a dark magic skill class cooldown. So this was especially helpful in that invasion, and actually I maxed it out just for that. Believe it or not, I had it at like level 9. I was like, fine, I'll go ahead and hit 10 on it, but because I used something else in the alternative. But this was great because I would actually use just one dark magic skill, and this I had the cooldown low enough where as soon as this 5 seconds was up, I had a skill ready to go that was dark magic, and it was only one. So I was able to get my ultimate very very quickly in that game mood, which is what allowed me to just survive. If it didn't have a true timer on it, I could have soloed it, and I was tempted to make a video, and I tried it, but I couldn't do it in time by myself. But
Do
if there wasn't a
you
time limit,
do you not feel
yeah.
that the 8 second cooldown on this doesn't hurt you at all?
It doesn't because I was able to get it back quick enough, but I only use this for that invasion.
Okay.
This is not what I would recommend for PvP. So what I actually would recommend instead of that one is the first three that I mentioned, and then top right, the yellow one.
Yep. The heal.
So
Oh no, this is
yeah,
the damage.
yeah, this is your execute. So increase damage delta targets with 50% HP or below by at max level 25%. So again, we made a WoW reference in our last video together. Very much the same effect here. This is your executability. This is huge in Dimension Duel, especially. This is a go-to because the fight is, especially after the silent changes that Netmarble made to it. The fight is longer. So when you get to someone at 50% health, this actually does. You could tell a big difference. So when I get to someone at 50% health, I know that I'm able to just to full send on them, and usually finish the fight. It's just getting past that first initial 50%. I will call attention to another skill, though. Actually, see it was on yours as well. The far right yellow, Mystic Disposal, is a very solid option. If you're going all in on your ultimate, which is a decent choice, this is a huge one. So I actually don't have it all the way maxed out. I have it on 7 for mine. It looks like it's at 17.5%. So I assume we'll be somewhere in the 20s at max level. But you get increased attack and HP while transformed as Dark Child,
Mm-hmm.
which is awesome. I personally just for how my playstyle is, especially in Dimension Duels, I don't. Admittedly, I've made this comment kind of offhand a few times. Feel free to edit this out if you don't agree. But when it comes to Omega War, the game just isn't perfectly balanced in the way that it's enjoyable all the time for me. So I don't full send or go full sweat in Omega War. If I want a PvP, I think the closest affair that I can entertain is Dimension Duel.
Yeah, we
So
just need
for
them
that,
to add the direct challenge so I can host a tournament.
absolutely, that would be super fun. In fact, we should make another video because I have an idea that would go off of that really well. So this is a really viable option in some of those longer fights, but I just to me it's not viable in Dimension Duel, which is like I said is one of my focuses.
Gotcha.
The other specialization that I kind of played around with just a tad was that purple at the top right, or kind of mid right, sword mastery, soul absorption. Um, I kind of was tempted to play with this for the invasion. I have it at level 5, so it's only at 1.5% of damage dealt using soul sword class skill as HP. Because
Mm-hmm.
I thought maybe that would give me more survivability. Because when it first came out, I feel like we were all trying to figure out the best way of handling the invasion, which makes sense. We finally got some decent in-game PvP, or I'm sorry, PvE content. But this just, it's still not worth it, in my opinion. The HP is slightly noticeable, and it's just not a high enough percent to make it worthwhile.
Totally agree. Just to build off a little bit, as you
Hmm.
can see from the stuff that I have on the screen right here, the ones I have, this was
Yep.
very early Magic. As soon as she was released, I wanted to test some stuff out. But I was leaning more towards the New Stark playstyle,
Yes,
whereas you are at the Hydra, correct?
that is correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so and to kind of touch on that point in the elephant in the room, New Stark City got this was the only buff, I'm sorry, nerf that Magic received. She's gotten no buffs. Arguably needed in PvP. It's pretty painful. But when it came to her New Stark City, you would see the +6 on her ultimate, like just the total ultimate ability. So it looked like it would buff all of her skills within it and actually did. However, not too long into her release, that was then changed to just the actual animation, or I guess you could call it pre-skill. So basically,
Yeah.
hitting your ultimate,
Yeah.
you get that boost of HP back, and you do a very, very small explosion. Well, that is all that that does now.
It
So
even
it's
felt like her
very,
basic attacks were doing more damage at that time.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, oh yeah, before the change, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Especially
that,
with set 15 coming out, which
yep,
also gives
I
you
know.
a +1.
I'm tempted. I was still tempted, and I kind of am to. I like 3 of them. I'm tempted to try to get one more, the crit damage one, and play with that a little bit just to see if it's worthwhile. But I have a feeling it's still not going to be enough to change what I'm already using.
Mm-hmm. Well,
But yeah, so that's been the only kind of nerf that she's gotten, and it's pretty noticeable if you went for that.
next I want to jump on companions.
Absolutely. So the companions, you can't talk about magic companions without talking about Mr. Mordo, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go over to his skills, so it only pertains to magic and Doctor Strange. So increases attack, applies an ultimate skill gauge recovery, and cooldown decrease while summoned, which is fantastic. You don't get that, well, at least at my level, it's 7 out of 10. You don't get that 1100% damage, which is fine. I would still rather have my attack higher, the ultimate gauge
Mm-hmm.
recovery, and CDR. That's just huge. So that is an easy one for PvE, and I would say for situational PvP, and that's until Hulk came out.
Something just to touch on
Yeah, yeah.
Mordo right here is two important things. I like that that damage thing is there, just
Hmm.
because we have other companions like right here, Donna Ports, who just does type damage, which some characters just don't have type damage. So this flat out does nothing on some characters. Like on if you got Donna Ports on Captain Marvel, it literally can't do anything
Yep,
because it only
agreed
increases type damage and she doesn't have type damage. But with
for sure.
additions like Mordo, which is if X then Y, but also has if not X, then here we are.
Yep, I agree.
Second thing I like to point out about Mordo is if we look at the animation, uh, you have to be in that range of the beam to get the full effect of the skill.
Yeah, you're absolutely
Similar
right.
to Athena.
Yep, it actually does extend pretty far. And when he first starts that little, you can see the beam to the far left is what Kigerr was referring to. So it does stretch a decent bit, but you definitely cannot just fully send on the other side of the map and still be getting the buff. Yep, that's a good point.
And then you want to
Now,
talk about this boy.
yeah, Hulk. Hulk is just a monster in PvP right now. I'm not saying he's overpowered. He just definitely changed the meta. And to a certain degree, it made it interesting. I feel like it was pretty stale there for a while. It was nothing had really shaken up the meta until Hulk came in and he literally smashed it, pun intended. But so you summon him, he taunts you. He does 100%. He gets 100% of your hero HP, which is just crazy on Magic because you're already having a decent bit of HP as it is. I think on my Magic, let me see how much HP I have. So I have 197,000 HP on my Magic. So that's a pretty thick Hulk when he comes down. And having to deal with him is obviously a problem. So he's a very very good option as well.
He's
And of
also
course,
free to play friendly, and why I say
absolutely.
that is you obviously have the 500 Omega points, whatever, but also when the Omega Pass, you can get stuff to get you close to that 3 star, as well
Hmm.
as I have the enhanced skill right here in front of us. If you look,
Yep.
the only thing that increases is the amount of your 8 attack that he gets, which
Right.
almost, I mean, it's good, but you almost don't care. 1.3% of
Yeah.
your
Hardly
attack.
noticeable.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's not why you're using the Hulk for his attack. You're using it for his
Everything
just
else.
yeah, literally everything
The
else.
rest
So
of
that's a
his
really
kit.
good point. Yeah, the smashing and the HP. Now, speaking of free to play friendly, one that I used for a long time, let me find him, was actually Ultron. Ultron was a fantastic option. So he creates a beer equal to, at least in mine, is 12 out of 15, 31% of your max HP for 10 seconds. So
Max
it
is
was
39.
Oh, there you go. Okay, there you go. You have it on screen. So that's huge. That is a very big barrier, especially in Dimension Duel and Omega War. I use it all the time. So that was a fantastic option for free to play. Especially, this is a sore topic for a lot of us. If you started recently, you get a lot of the Ultrons for free just for playing the campaign. And then if you then use the Pegasus base, you can use it to get the same uh, companion champs or whatever they're called.
For defeating Dormammu, you get 30 Ultron shards. But
Yep.
something on top of that that people aren't talking about at all is where she at? Akiko, you get 70 of her for doing Kingpin.
Really? I didn't know that. Oh man. That's a lot. Jeez. Okay. So the only other one that I think is worthwhile that at least is a true skill, and to your point, I would 100% agree. When you use companions correctly, they are just an extension of your skills and is basically like a free skill. And that would be Gilgamesh. I used him for a while as well. He was very solid option. I'm sure everyone's probably familiar with him by now. Decent cooldown at 33%, depending on where you're at. And he smashes the ground and stuns you. I guess that's not the only other option. The other one I used as well was Yondu, especially for those pesky Spider-Man.
Anti dodge.
Yep, anti-dodge mechanic.
Well,
But
Yondu, I'll call attention to him real quick.
yeah,
Is before we go on to the next subject, is what's interesting about, I guess we'll just look at the animation. Um, he throws the Yaka arrow and he throws it all across the board. It does not
oh
stop.
yeah,
It's also always looking for a target. So in Dimension Duel, we'll say, if you're doing your magic and I'm playing Widow, this will search me out while invisible,
yep.
which
Wow,
is an
yeah,
important thing.
that is good to note.
So next subject I want to touch on is one or two tips for each of the game modes.
Absolutely.
So we're starting off of PVE. Let's just because Magneto is a recurring invasion, one or two tricks on Magneto specifically.
Absolutely. So I'm actually glad you led with that. So the first one is the companion I would recommend for that is in fact Ultron. Um, Mordor is great for damage and the cooldown and your ultimate, but Ultron is going to help you literally be able to solo that fight if done correctly. I actually just leave it on cooldown. Like I just let him use it whenever and just auto it that way. But the other tip for PvE when it comes to the invasion was that I don't use my ultimate until the last phase. Depending on who I'm with, if I'm running with a bunch of people that have high damage, then I definitely won't do it. But if I'm running people with people who have just very very low damage, I will pop it early just for that extra damage. You're hitting just crazy auto attacks with your ultimate, so it's definitely worth using. But your ultimate in that fight is mainly used as a survivability tool, and I only use it when I get below 20% health because between the health pots and Ultron, you're going to stay somewhere between 30 and 45%, at least with the amount of health that I have in defense and all that. So it's worthwhile just to save it for that. And like I said, I was actually able to outlive almost every group I was ever in and never hit the time limit and always finish the fight. But so that would be the only other tip for PvE. PvE outside of that is pretty audible.
What about
Outside of that
Dimension Duel?
invasion, so Dimension Duel, I'm definitely using Hulk. He is just, especially with the skills that we mentioned, and I kind of alluded to that when you summon. I always call them just the dogs, but when you summon the hounds and they come out with Hulk, it is just so obnoxious to ignore because you get taunted and then they're breaking your guard, and then if they are still on you and you're focusing on Hulk, when they explode, your guard is probably fully broken, and then you're the whole time you're still able to play Magic as Magic and use your abilities. So it is a overwhelming force in the very beginning of the fight.
Well, I guess the second tip would be something that I've gotten pretty used to is when
Hmm.
you're fighting against an opposing Hulk. This isn't just Magic, but Magic is very good at it. Is run away.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
And Magic
you
has a very
reposition
good.
you
Good.
reposition yourself because Hulk, while he has all these things we're talking about, he is very slow.
Yep.
So you can dash his magic, reposition, get in a spot where you can see the field a little bit better, and then get it to where you can focus on the actual target you want to hit, and then go on them.
Absolutely. The only other tip that I would mention too is with Magic, with her not her actual dodge, but her true dash or I guess sprint ability. It does. It's so quick. You actually teleport the slightest bit, and I use it all the time to get behind people and to try to break their focus. So I actually will not use it to rush the fight like you would as a Captain America to kind of initiate the fight.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, I deliberately use it as like a kind of fourth dodge. Now it's not working as a dodge, but if done correctly, you can truly get out of a sticky situation and dodge some attacks like that.
Of course. What about Omega War?
So a Mega War, again, I like I mentioned previously, I'm not huge on a Mega War just because of kind of the current state of the game and balancing. I love it. I personally play a Mega War like I'm gonna jump in and see how many people I can kill. So I usually start by full sprinting. I usually sprint and then double jump all the way to their side of the base and then just cause havoc. And then I do try to get my ultimate as again sort of like a sense of survival. I pop it and then just kind of continue to rain havoc. But the dash double jump is slept on in Omega War for Magic. You can easily get halfway across the map if
Mm-hmm.
done correctly.
Definitely, she is, as far as base movement speed, the fastest character we have in the game.
Absolutely.
What would you touch on the potential? How would you go
Sure.
about this?
Absolutely. So if you start, I mentioned this in my most recent Magic video as well. When it comes to potential, you need to look at it one of two ways, at least in my opinion. Are you looking at it as if you are a brand new, player in the game trying to main Magic, or is Magic now a secondary character for you? So if it is your main, you want to focus on attack to make the progression of leveling and playing through the story a little bit easier, because attack is obviously going to be one of your best stats. So you get that at the first one. and you don't get it again until like the very end. So you're going to prioritize attack on 1 and 5. But then after that, it is you mentioned this in our video with Dark Widow or Black Widow rather, Dark Widow. Oh my goodness, Black Widow. That the first one is super cheap at 15, and you can either get defense and HP. HP is obviously you should look at HP as just additional attack. But with that, I run my magic with crit rate. So I prioritize attack, then crit rate, and then HP. So you actually don't get crit rate to the fifth one now.
Hmm.
And then outside of that, you just pump in HP everywhere else. Defense Pierce on that second one, I think is, yeah, you're on it now, is a very good option, especially if you're focused on PvP. I basically did everything but defense and then just came back to defense towards the end.
And look, they gave us more HP, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, tons of HP. Lots and lots of HP. The ultimate gauge recovery at 4 is also really nice. So that's worth picking up as well.
All right. So jumping on into my last would be costumes.
Absolutely. So I get into a lot of discussions with Magics about this, and I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that they're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. So when it comes to like special costumes, in my opinion at least, I think steampunk is one of the stronger options. You do get that arcane sword skill, basically plus 14, which is just crazy. Maybe I could crit as much as a dark Black Widow if I could get that my hands on that. I actually do have a full steampunk, but I don't can't nano it, so I don't use it. But I will admit that the summon, the Eyes of Osiris, is a decent PvP option. I still don't think it's better, but I will at least entertain the conversation that it is a viable option.
Very nice. What about regional?
Yeah, so for regional, I run Hydra for the crit rate. So you get attack, crit rate, and then Soul Sword class skill +6.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I personally run.
Very nice.
And
Go ahead.
mhm. I was just saying the other option, I'm trying to find, I think it's Xanderth. Yeah, so Xanderth is the one that if you have enough crit rate in your build and you get enough Xanderth, you actually get defense pierce plus 11.6 and the soul sword class skills. So depending on your build, if you get the luxury of picking your regional, usually your regional picks you, at least in my opinion, when you first start out. So this is also a very good option, but if you only if you get enough crit rate elsewhere.
And to finish it off, what about people who can't get regional?
Yeah, I gotta find it. There was one in particular
Well,
that
this is something we talked about over on my video when we were going over the
yes.
costumes. Is for all the other characters, you can get two versions of every skill, where it'll be pick whatever skill you want, and as we saw with Magic right here, Xanderth
Hmm.
being Defense Pierce and Hydra being
Crit
crit
rate.
rate.
Yep.
With Widow, it's flat attack and crit damage. You can pick any skill you want and have two versions of that. One for the plus 3 set attack, and the other for 3 set crit rate. Magic does
Absolutely.
not have that for all of her skills.
No, she doesn't. And this is so the I've actually located it. So the Uncanny X-Men is actually the free to play non-regional I would recommend, which is gives you the crit rate and it gives you Master the Abyss skill +6. So that's the one where you teleport in and do a dot.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You're probably going to use at least a version of that skill on no matter what you do for Magic. So this is a really awesome high value bonus because you actually don't get the skill that I would recommend which would be the main soul sword skill in any of these costumes. So that is the one that I would recommend.
Very true. Like I said, like I just said,
Yeah, yeah.
until they add the other costumes for Magic, the options for our favorite or best skills aren't really totally there. But
Yep.
thank you again for showing up, Misery Hates Company. Let the people know where they can find you and what to expect.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I thoroughly, like I said in our little pre-chat prior to our videos, Kigerr is a very solid YouTuber. He has such a level of detail that I can really appreciate that. So I wanted to make sure I got him in my channel as well. So like he said, description below. I am a Magic main. I do a build for kind of any and all. But I want to make sure I get kind of the experts on the topic to provide that insight. So I really appreciate Kigerr coming over and helping me out with that.
Of course. And what about your upload schedule?
So yeah, my my upload schedule is something. I got at least one video coming out every day, with full length videos coming out Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, with shorts coming out, as a filler any day in between.
Well, there you go.
Unless I'm busy with work, in which case it's just no
Whenever
holds
you
barred.
can.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, his link's gonna be down below. And until next time.
Are you interested in buying yourself some Marvel merch? Some amazing hoodies with your favorite character on it? Like Spider-Man, Loki, and Venom. Go click the link in my description box now and get some awesome discounts from 20% up to 60% off. They offer you free worldwide shipping on orders over $39.90. So, what are you waiting for? Link in the description.